Hello and welcome to a live Deprogrammed with Keri Smith. I am your host, Keri. We are back at our usual time, my usual time, 2 o'clock. Well, a little bit late. Thank you guys. 2 o'clock Central. I told my husband it's been a while since I've done a stream at 2 o'clock Central on a Monday or a Friday, but here we are. So it's good to be back and good to see some familiar faces in the chat. Today, I wanted to do an episode about the role of men in society and about female abuse, the deterioration of the family, of marriages, and how it's related to the deterioration of society as a whole. And, if you've been watching Deprogrammed or even my old channel for a while, you know that this is something that's of one of my top topics, like one of the things I'm most interested in because I think it's so important. It's like one of the it's the key to fixing what ails us, not just as individuals, but as a people, like as a society, as a country. And there was something in the media this past week that went viral, and it was a clip of this actor, Jerry O'Connell. I didn't know who it was at first. I did not recognize him. People had to tell me who it was. But I did recognize abuse. I do recognize abuse when I see it. And it was a clip that went viral of this actor, Jerry O'Connell from Stand By Me. People may remember him as the pudgy kid from Stand By Me. And it went viral. It was him on Bill Maher's podcast, Club Normal. Is that what it's called? Club Random. And it's him describing abuse, but in a weird way. It's simultaneously, you will see, like a lot of abuse victims, he is simultaneously terrified. He's very cautious about his words. There's a lot of trepidation there in what he's saying, and he's very careful, and he even points out that he's being very careful. But at the same time, he also has this naivete about it where he's sort of saying it as if he doesn't recognize that it's abuse that he's describing. He thinks it's something else that he has to be careful about, and doesn't seem to recognize that he's disclosing a description of abusive behavior, abuse from his wife and his daughters. So, we're going to take a look at this clip in case you haven't seen it, and we're going to talk about it. And I have some scripture and some other things pulled up here because, as I mentioned, this is a big topic. It's not just yes, I'm talking about it because something came up in the news this week that reminded me of it, but this is one of those very meaningful, important subjects. It's central to healing our country, healing our society, healing our families, healing our marriages, our children. Like, this is about the abdication of the roles that God gave us, of God's natural order, and of men relinquishing their role as leaders and kowtowing to feminist, woke abuse, to godless abuse. And it's also about women, refusing to let men lead and buying into all this stuff that I bought into, all the feminist programming, all the lies that feminism sells you. So let's take a look at this. Here we go.
I'm going to tell you about a bit of, I say this, will I stay married? Blow it over here. My,
Sounds like you're going to blow it over here.
the night of the election, this third one,
Yeah.
third election. Everyone knows what I'm talking about here. I was watching late at night the returns, and I'll be honest with you, I didn't think Trump was going to win. I live in California. I didn't think he was going to win. From what I was hearing,
I didn't either.
I think he was going to win.
No,
this is where I live,
Yeah.
I said something along the lines of like, there was no planning. This is what they get. There should have been a primary. I said something along those lines, like I was just spitballing ideas as to, it was a shock, My wife and daughters, without saying anything, became physical with me. They were filled with rage. So if I am being careful with you in how I say things, yes, I live in California. I live with not one, not two, but three people who, if I made any kind of joke, they would they become very angry with me. You know,
I don't want to tell you how to live your life, but I couldn't live that way. I would, whatever household or whatever situation I'm in, I say what I truly think. And if it makes you angry, I'm sorry. We'll have to work that out.
Well, it makes.
But I am not going to tuck my tail between my legs and just shut the fuck up. This is what you were dealing with when you were a child. Just sit there and don't say anything.
Yeah,
sit on your hands. But what happened to Rob Reiner? More of that, Jerry. More of that.
Yeah.
Where's Rob Reiner's ghost when you need him to be telling you more of that?
Yeah.
Okay. A couple of things. I'm going to play it without the sound in the background while I'm talking, because even without the sound, if you watch this without the sound, his face, like this is long-term abuse and gaslighting. This guy has lived with the fear of that anger. He mentions the word anger several times. He said not one, not two, but three people who would be very angry with me if I make a joke. And this is even on it's written all over his face, his caution, his fear that he might say the wrong thing. This is called walking on eggshells. Some of you may be familiar with this, especially if you know about cluster B personality disorders and cluster B abuse. Cluster B personality disorders are the disorders that are there are 4 of them, but you know it's borderline personality disorder, histrionic personality disorder, antisocial personality disorder, and narcissistic personality disorder. All 4 of these share a lot in common: low empathy for other people, high degree of narcissism in all 4 of them, very little shame. They oftentimes, people who live with someone who has cluster B personality disorder describes what that is like, is having to walk on eggshells all the time and watch what you say, because you never know what is going to set them off, what's going to set off the extreme anger and emotion. That is what this guy is describing. And it's not just what he's describing with his words, it's also what he's describing with his facial expressions and his behavior. He's afraid of saying the wrong thing. Now, funny enough, he said exactly the wrong thing, according to the 3 abusive women waiting for him at home. He's already said, since this interview went viral, that he has been in a lot of trouble at home. Of course, I saw some people when I shared this clip online who, I guess, they don't understand abusive personalities that well, and they said maybe his wife and daughters will see this and rethink how they treat him and rethink their behavior. Maybe it'll cause them to have a wake up moment. And I said, no, no, not at all. No, when the abuser sees something like this, it does not cause them to have self-reflection and think, oh, how have I been treating him? No, no, no. When the abuser sees this, it's how dare you? It's anger, it's livid rage. How dare you unwittingly describe for the world what it's like living with me? Like, that is the abuser's response. How dare you? Yes, they will blame Jerry. Absolutely. You get it. Yes, how dare he? And it seems like that's what's happened. He did put on X that somebody said he's not allowed to do podcasts anymore. And he did say they're very angry at him at home. He was trying to make a joke of it. But I don't think it's a joke. Now, some people thought this was funny. I don't think it's funny. I think it is sad and also disgusting. There's 2 different reactions there, and I think both are valid and they're happening simultaneously, and a lot of people have described having both reactions. It is sad because obviously he lives with abuse and he's tolerated it for so long. It's compounded. He's used to it and he is walking on eggshells in everything he says and does. That's very sad, but there's also an element of revulsion to it because it's pathetic. It is pathetic. You are the man, you are the husband, you are the father. It is God's natural order. It is the natural law of the world, of the way we are made. Even if you don't believe in God, you can see it reflected in the natural law. You are the man. You are bigger, you are stronger, you are called to be the protector, to be the leader, to be the shepherd of your family, to be the shelter for your family. And he's abdicated that role. Now, I'm not saying it's entirely his fault. Obviously, he's with an abusive wife who is clearly, probably, who knows, but I would guess never really stepped aside to allow him to lead. But he's accepted that. He has agency. He has personal agency, and he accepted that. He chose that. He chose to be with a domineering woman who will not let him lead or shepherd. And what is happening? Let's look at the fallout of this. Because it's not just bad for the man who's being abused at home by the wife and by his daughters in this case. It's not he mentions physical abuse, guys. It's not just the emotional abuse and the gaslighting and the fear of saying the wrong thing. It's not just that. It's also he said they got physical with him and they were full of rage. We have all seen videos in the past 5 years. If you don't know what leftist female rage looks like now, I don't know where you must be under a rock because we've seen video after video of it. These unhinged, insane leftist white women. So we can all imagine what that's like at home for him, living with that. He's mentioning physical abuse. And at some point in his life, he chose to live with a woman who's abusive and daughters who are abusive. And what's the impact on them? It's not just on him. Yes, he's abused. It's horrible for him that he's living like this. But it's also terrible for his wife to live in unrepentant sin like this and to live as an abuser, as an unhinged person. And it's also terrible for his daughters because he abdicated his responsibility to shepherd them, to lead them, to guide them, to model by example, to model the appropriate behavior by example. Because he refused to do that, they have been learning from their mother. It's no surprise that the way he describes them, they are just like their mom. They are full of rage and likely to get physical with him. And he has to be afraid of what their reactions will be if he tells a joke. No wonder, because he abdicated responsibility for shepherding them and he left that to this abusive woman in the household. It's all around just a sad and pathetic situation. Lucky Dice says the trickle down will be huge. Daughters' boyfriends are in for it. Yes. And by the way, think about the kind of men they will be bringing home. It's not always going to be a submissive man that they can abuse like the way their dad was abused. Sometimes because they didn't have a strong and secure father figure, they're going to bring home someone who tilts too far in the other direction and bring home an abusive man. Sometimes it goes that way. There's all kinds of dysfunction. There's all kinds of problems when everything gets out of whack. When you refuse to live in the natural order, in the natural law. So those are my initial thoughts on just the sadness of this video. There's something else I wanted to point out. I have a couple more clips to show you from a few more examples of this, and then I've got some scripture I want to read and some advice from other people, not from me, but from some advice. So there was also an article about the rest of the interview, and I did go and watch more of it. I didn't watch the whole thing, but I watched more of it. And before he even got to that part of the interview, at one point, Bill Maher was talking about, so when he was young, Jerry O'Connell talked about how he was diagnosed with having ADHD and the doctors wanted to put him on Ritalin. And thankfully his mom said no. And Bill Maher started talking about how boys are misdiagnosed. They're overdiagnosed in this society because our current modern society treats boys like they are retarded girls, or like they should be like girls, like they're dysfunctional or broken girls. And as if being hyperactive is something that you need to give a child medication for. It is overprescribed. And Bill Maher was sort of talking about this and some of the harmful effects on young boys in this current society, harmful effects from that's downstream from woke leftist ideology. And as he was speaking about this, Jerry O'Connell started to get very nervous, just like we saw there. And he was saying, oh, if you're going to talk about gender, you're going to need to smoke some more of that pot and blow it my way. Because like, basically, because he doesn't smoke pot, but he was sort of joking about like, I need to get a contact high from you because it was so scary for him to discuss gender because what might his wife and daughters think? There were so many parts like this. It was so disturbing. Something else that I think went right over Bill Maher's head is in that clip we saw at the end where he says, "What would Rob Reiner say to you?" That goes to Rob Reiner. He's not. Some people thought out of context, they thought he was bringing up the fact that Rob Reiner is also someone who did not parent well. That's not what he was doing. What he was doing was earlier in the interview, Jerry O'Connell talked about how because he was hyperactive, his mom had told him, sit on your hands and don't say anything. And that had kind of become a mantra to him. And when he was on the set of Stand By Me, at one point he started acting out. He started acting out and he started improvising. And he said that Rob Reiner changed his life because Rob Reiner called cut and then said, more of that. And he basically encouraged him and said, you need to do more of that, and encouraged him to be himself and to be creative and all these things. And so that's what Bill Maher was talking about when he said, now you have become just like you were as a kid. You're living with these abusive, Bill Maher didn't say abusive, but they are abusive, these abusive women, and you're sitting on your hands and you're being quiet and you need the ghost of Rob Reiner to tell you to be yourself and to say what you think. That's what he was saying. But what I think went over Bill Maher's head is, look at what happened to Rob Reiner. Rob Reiner is another example of an ineffective leftist husband and father, where in his case, it led to the most tragic and evil consequences. And I think that just kind of like blew past him. Another father who doesn't shepherd. So in the interview, there was this other part, and several articles picked this up as well. And this is so sad and also not surprising for an abusive leftist home where there's the woman is wearing the pants and is also physically and emotionally threatening to the spouse, to the husband. This part, so sad. It says Jerry O'Connell is opening up about his love life with Rebecca Romaine in a blazing new. So I guess his wife is also an actress, Rebecca Romaine. O'Connell, 52, joined Bill Maher on the Monday, March 16th episode of the Comedians Club Random podcast and had one simple request for his host, who has a penchant for smoking marijuana in the recording studio. Quote, "I want you to get higher than you've ever been on any episode, and I want you to blow it in my face," the actor said. This is what Jerry O'Connell kept saying to him, kind of making fun of the fact that he was nervous to talk about certain things. And then he says this about his wife. He says, "I don't smoke myself, but listen, I live with somebody who smokes, vapes, actually." He's talking about his wife. And then he says, "The only time my wife finds me appealing, or the only time she's intimate with me, the only time my wife, what's the word, touches me, is if my wife takes a hit off that pen." That is one of the saddest things I've ever heard about a marriage. It's not just that that his wife is not intimate with him unless she's stoned, unless she's high. It's that she doesn't even touch him. There's no physical touch unless she's stoned. This is the repercussion of somebody. There was a person in my chat, Sharon is her name. Sharon had a great comment. She said, "This is pathetic, and this is just Romans 1." She said, "When you suppress the truth, it takes constant effort to avoid the obvious." This is a man who has used all of his masculine power and strength that God gave him to force the truth out of his household and out of himself, because he purposefully and intentionally swallowed the lie that Satan sold him. Yes. Yes. This is a man who lives with a woman who is abusive, who is training his daughters in how to be abusive, and who does not even physically touch him or look at him unless she's stoned. And interestingly enough, there were some people in my chat who said, "Oh, well, all celebrities are crazy. We know this. They're not indicative of what's happening in America." Sometimes I agree with you on that. Depends on what we're talking about. In this case, I don't agree with you. I think we all know, don't we all know people who live like this? Don't we all know people who have accepted this? Th I hear from people all the time who are dealing with these issues, and not just dealing with leftist abusive women, but across the gamut, across the spectrum. I recently heard from men who are dealing with wives who have bought into the Candace Owens cult, who are speaking to them with such contempt and hatred and wondering how they got there and what to do about it. I have heard from men dealing with this with their wives who are in the candy cult. Back when I used to sell cowboy boots, I used to sell handmade cowboy boots. When I worked in customer service, I was out on the floor. I loved it. I loved working with people, and I love my boots. But one of the interesting, it's great for people watching. It's great for observations of, relationship dynamics and things like that. And one of the most disturbing things I used to see every once in a while, it wasn't all the time, but every once in a while, would be women talking down to their husband in front of other women, in front of other people, like in public, like demeaning and belittling and mocking their husband, speaking to their husband with contempt, speaking to their husband like he's a child with no respect. And no wonder these women, like in the case of Jerry Connell's wife, have no attraction to the husband and only touch him when they're stoned or on some kind of drug or whatever, because there is no attraction. These women have the women who belittle, talk down to, abuse their husbands, they have no respect for them. How can they have attraction for them? A lot of those women end up having affairs. They end up, it's sin upon sin upon sin. It's compounded. It's just very depressing. Okay, but we're gonna get to the right order, like God's natural order and the way it should look. I just wanna show you 2 more examples. Now, again, I don't think this is just, celebrities by any stretch of the imagination. We all know people who live like this. We've all seen it. But, celebrities are the examples that we can use because they are in the public eye. They do interviews, they are out in public demonstrating this behavior for us, and so those are the examples that we can use. And here's another example, and some of you guys remember this was recent. This was, Alec Baldwin and his wife on the red carpet when she speaks down to him and shushes him and disrespects him in front of everyone. Here we go.
Season 2? Do we know anything?
The Ilaria show.
No. I think we're gonna see. We're gonna see how it feels to have it be out there.
It's gonna be great.
This
You're
season,
a winner.
oh my God! When I'm talking, you're not talking.
I'm sorry.
No, when I'm talking, you're not talking. This is why. Yes, we'll have to just cut him out of the show. No.
I mean, just look at that and the way he looks at the camera, because this just got seen. Like, how humiliating. He also says, "I'm sorry" to her. She says, "When I'm talking, you're not talking." And he says, "I'm sorry." Like a dog puts his tail between his legs.
This,
great.
This
You're a winner.
Oh my God! When I'm talking, you're not talking.
I'm sorry.
No, when I'm talking, you're not talking. This is why. Yes, we'll have to just cut him out of the show. No.
Just atrocious behavior. Just no wife should ever treat their husband this way. The Bible commands the wives to treat our husband with respect. And again, even if you don't believe in God, it's interesting if you look about you in society that in surveys and the things that cause husbands and wives to destroy their marriage, to stray from their marriage. Most often, women say the marriage is broken because they do not feel adored. What does the Bible tell the husband to do? To love his wife, to adore his wife. The husband says the marriage is broken, or he decides to just blow up the marriage and leave the marriage because he says what? He doesn't feel respected. What does the Bible tell women to do? Respect your husbands. Men need respect. Women need love and adoration. We both need both. Men and women need both. It's just which respect seems to matter more for men. We are built this way on average. Whereas adoration matters more to women, feeling valued by their husband. It's both a different way of feeling valued. But this woman, Alec Baldwin's wife, what's her name? Hilaria. Zero respect for her husband. Completely willing to shoot him in the back right there in front of the public, in front of everyone, to humiliate him and emasculate him in front of everyone. That is not a partner. That is not being a helpmate. That is not being a spouse. That is not being a wife. As a spouse, you're supposed to be the one person that your spouse can trust above any other human being, that they can come to, that they can find shelter in, that they can rest around, that they don't have to keep their guard up around. You're supposed to have their six. You're supposed to be watching their back, not putting knives in the back. I've got one more example, and somebody mentioned this person in the chat, and I just happened to have this one pulled up, actually. This is one that I remembered from a while back because this stood out to me at the time. Oh, man. And again, this isn't just celebrities, but we can use examples of celebrities because they are in the public eye. This is Will Smith, and this is I don't know if you guys remember this. It was from a few years ago. And this is from a live stream that his wife did without his permission. Apparently, she used to just start streaming, just without asking him, just put him publicly up in front of the world. And here we go. Let's watch this.
You know, Esther Perel is coming to the table. She's going to be at the red table. Would you say she has been instrumental in you and I redefining our relationship?
I would say don't just start filming me without asking me.
Oh my goodness.
If you could film me.
Esther, come help us again, please. I'm still dealing with foolishness.
Because she don't just.
Would you say that she helped us heal the hurts that we caused between one another?
My social media presence is my bread and butter, okay? So you can't just use me for social media and not, don't just start roll. I'm standing in my house. Don't just start rolling.
Please watch us stare at the red table because she's helped us a lot. Can't you? You know, Esther Perel is coming to the table.
So not only did she just start streaming him without his permission, but she's streaming him about their relationship and relationship problems and this woman. And then she says, even when he basically indicates to her that he's not comfortable with this, it's not just with his words. Again, it's his demeanor. It's all of the nonverbal cues as well. His face, his tone of voice, everything is basically like, please stop. Please stop. Does she stop? No. She turns the camera towards her and addresses the relationship coach that she's having on her show and says, please come help us. Look at this foolishness I have to deal with. Continues doing the very thing that's causing her husband distress. Now, we know this couple has a lot of problems. Again, just like with the Jerry O'Connell couple, there's always, it's never just one problem, one sin, sin tends to open the door for other sins. C.S. Lewis talks about this a lot, like it opens the door and others come in. So it might be pride that opens the door, and then greed comes in, or lust or envy, and all these different things come with that first one. And in this case, we know that this couple has an open marriage, like infidelity, like all kinds of issues. When we saw him act in a weird way, and it made the news when he got up and slapped Chris Rock at an award show, and people were speculating like what was that about? And I immediately thought, oh, that's an abused spouse who is acting out in defense of his abuser. That's what I thought. I've seen that a million times. It's like the junkyard dog who will attack anybody who comes after his abuser, his abusive owner. The junkyard dog will protect his abuser, is similar. That's what I saw when I saw Will Smith doing that. Anyway, those are 3 examples. Just very depressing examples of men and masculinity. So I wanted to bring up this article. I've got a couple things pulled up. Now, this is a pretty great article I wanted to read through. I'm not familiar with this site. I was just reading a lot of different things, a lot of different uh, sources with advice for men, because I have heard people say, well, how do you get your ship back in order? If you're not, like, how do you get your house in order if you have not been shepherding your family well? And so I was looking for advice that men give other men, and that pastors give. And I found a couple different resources. Let's start with this article. It's from a website called Christ Overall. And the article is, what does it mean for a man to manage his household well? When Paul describes what an overseer of a church must be, he includes this qualification, quote, he must manage his own household well, with all dignity, keeping his children submissive. This is in 1 Timothy 3-4. And I actually have the whole of the scripture there says that this is about the qualifications for overseers, like for elders, for anybody that's going to serve a role in the church as an elder, right? And it says, here's a trustworthy saying, whoever aspires to be an overseer desires a noble task. Now, the overseer is to be above reproach, faithful to his wife, temperate, self-controlled, respectable, hospitable, able to teach, not given to drunkenness, not violent, but gentle, not quarrelsome, not a lover of money. He must manage his own family well and see that his children obey him, and he must do so in a manner worthy of full respect. If anyone does not know how to manage his own family, how can he take care of God's family, of God's church? So that's the full context for that verse. And I just wanted to give you the full context. I'll continue. Paul argues from the lesser to the greater. If you are not reliable in small matters, how will you care for others in great matters? If you cannot manage your own finances well, how will you care for others as a financial advisor? And if you cannot manage your own household well, how will you care for God's church as a pastor? How to be a faithful pastor illustrates how to be a faithful husband and father. So let's work in reverse from the shepherd metaphor to the household. That is, let's focus on the shepherd metaphor to analyze how a father should lead his family. Faithful shepherds do 4 actions. Number 1, a faithful shepherd knows the sheep. Number 2, a faithful shepherd feeds the sheep. Number 3, a faithful shepherd leads the sheep. And number 4, a faithful shepherd protects the sheep. Let's analyze what faithful fathers do by using that 4-part paradigm. Knowing. So knowing the sheep. A faithful pastor knows his sheep. Jesus is the ultimate shepherd, and he says, quote, I am the good shepherd. I know my own, and my own know me. That's from John 10:14. A faithful father knows his wife and children. A shepherd smells like sheep because he lives with them. He spends time with them. His presence is comforting, reassuring. The fundamental start point to knowing your wife and children is to be with them and to know them. What do your wife and children need and want from you? What makes them tick? What do they like and dislike? What are their deepest fears and aspirations? Do you delight to study your wife and children? What are you intentionally doing to get to know them better? Do you regularly have unhurried conversations? Are you deeply interested in them and their world? The first and most basic role of shepherds is to know the sheep. The next three responsibilities, feed, lead, and protect, are necessary because sheep are fairly helpless. I'm just going to pause there for a second. I've mentioned this before, but there is a YouTuber. I've been watching a lot of his episodes lately. He's sort of like Dr. Laura, but he's a man. I think he appeals more to men, much more to men than Dr. Laura does. And he doesn't always get everything right. Like sometimes there are things he says that I disagree with, but for the most part, I think he gives great advice for the most part. His name is John Deloney. I'm sure some of you guys are familiar with him. And he does a great job of talking about carving out that time to know your spouse and your kids. And if you have kids, he talks about when he gets home, like he and his wife have mommy and daddy time. Like they tell the kids, like, we're going to sit here, except for the baby can be with us because the baby can't fend for themselves, but you guys go play together for X amount of time. We're going to sit and talk. And they just talk and they just put devices away and they look at each other and they just talk about their day and they just connect. And they have that meaningful, the eyes are the wind of the soul, right? They have that meaningful face-to-face, eyeball-to-eyeball conversation without being on phones and barely listening to each other. And they just connect over what's important. And they see each other. And they know each other. And if you are not having this, if you are a husband and a father who you feel like there's some breakdown happening, you're in one of these situations where suddenly you're like, I didn't realize it, but I'm in chaos. Like, how can I fix this? I guess I haven't been shepherding right. The first thing I would wonder if you were my friend is what's the connection like between you and your wife? Has it broken down? Are you guys even connecting anymore? Do you know each other? Do you know each other? And if you don't, you have to find time to reconnect. You're going to have to find time to whether it's going for a walk. I mean, we all need physical exercise anyway. So my husband and I connect a lot during walks. We will go to the local high school and just do some laps around the track. We'll take our dog. We'll go for walks around the neighborhood. And we have the longest, deepest conversations. And we talk other times too. Sitting down together and making that time, driving, sitting in the garden, what have you. But the walks are the best for us. So you have to find that time and you have to make it happen. We live in a society currently that where we're sort of always, and this will sound familiar. Everything I say is like advice to myself as well. You should know this. We often find ourselves saying things like, well, I don't have time for that. That's nice for you that you have time to go for a walk, but I don't have time for that. Or I don't have time for the gym. That's nice for you that you have time for that, but I don't have time for that. We often find ourselves saying things like this, right? And what I've had to teach myself and remind myself when I say those things is we can we decide what's important to us based on what we prioritize, based on what we make time for. And if if the most important thing to having a healthy marriage and family, and then, flowing outwards from that, society and country, if the most important thing to that is finding time to connect with your spouse, then that's the most important thing you're going to make time for. You're going to figure out how to fit that in and sacrifice, I put that in quotes, in other ways. Maybe it's just once a week to start. Maybe it's on a weekend or whenever it is based on your schedule that you're not working, but you've got that. If that is important to you, having a healthy, functional marriage and home, then we will find time for that. We will work it in and cut out some of the other things. Cut out some of the online time, cut out some of the podcast time, turn off my show. Do you know what I mean? Turn it off. Turn off the TV, cut out movie night, cut out game night until you get plugged into each other again and connected again and you know each other. You know each other. Jordan Peterson used to talk about a dragon getting into your home. He used to tell this story, this allegory about a dragon getting into your home and how when it first comes into your home, it's like a little pet dragon. You're like, oh, it's just a little one. It's just a little dragon. And you just ignore it, thinking it'll go away. And it gets bigger and it gets bigger and it gets bigger until in the story that he tells, the dragon is so big that it's bigger than the house and it picks up the house and carries the house away, like destroys the home. That is an unresolved problem. That's an allegory for an unresolved problem in the home. If you're not connecting and you're like, oh, it's just a little thing. We're both really busy right now. We don't have time to connect. And yeah, I don't feel plugged into my spouse lately, but it's just a phase and we'll get, if you're not addressing that little dragon, it will get bigger. And other things will come from that. Other bad things. So that's the number one thing. I know I'm belaboring that one, but you need to know your spouse and your children. Okay. Number 2, feeding the flock. A faithful pastor feeds his sheep. King David was a shepherd as a boy, and he later wrote, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside still waters." A good shepherd provides what his sheep need to be healthy. A church's shepherd feeds the sheep with spiritual food and water, with God's words. A faithful father feeds his wife and children. The feeding metaphor means to provide. A faithful father feeds his wife and children by providing for them in at least 2 broad categories, body and soul. Number 1, feed them physically by providing for their bodies. This includes providing food, clothing, and shelter. God designed a man to provide for his wife and children. We work hard so that we can be generous to our family and others. We plan and invest so that we can be generous to our family and others long term. Number 2, feed them spiritually by providing for their souls. Teach them about God's words and God's world constantly. Deuteronomy 6:7. God commands, fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in the discipline and instruction of the Lord, which is basically equivalent to a robust Christian education and enculturation. Okay. So, providing. I like that it breaks it down into 2 different types, like providing for the physical, for the body, like clothing, feeding, sheltering, and then also providing for the spiritual, for the soul. Loving, encouraging, leading by example, guiding, providing, like walking in the word and showing your wife and children by example, behaving like Christ, like, the imitation of Christ, which by the way, it's a great book for men to read. I don't think there's enough of this. I mean, obviously there's not enough of this in today's world. But even with I think possibly in families that go to church who believe there may not be enough of this in some families. I think this is usually what might be lacking. My pastor said, he counsels a lot of people, and he said a lot of times, if he's counseling someone and there's a big problem going on, the first thing he asks them is, how often are you in the word? How often are you reading scripture? And almost always the answer is they're not reading the Bible. And I will say this as someone who is relatively new to Christianity. I guess it'll be almost 10 years soon. So I could quit saying that soon. I just say that because I feel like there's so much I obviously have to learn, and I'm still learning. But if you are new to Christ, everybody's different. Some people just are voracious readers for the Bible because when they are new to Christ, they're like, I got to read everything because this is amazing and I'm on fire for it. And other people are they find the Bible daunting, or they find scripture daunting, and they don't pick it up outside of church services. If you are in that latter category, trust that the longer you stay on the path and the closer your relationship gets with God, the more you will want to be in the scripture. It will come naturally. But if you are a father and if you are a husband, God calls you to be the shepherd of your family and to lead your family. And so, growing into that role of leader, part of that is instructing your is helping with Bible study, being the person who takes the initiative and saying, "Hey, we're going to do a family Bible study at night. We're going to read the word at night. We're going to pray together. We're going to do this together." It doesn't have to be the same. It doesn't have to be the same for every person. Maybe you read the Bible once a week, maybe you read it every night, but you're doing some type of instruction, spiritual instruction for your family. And once again, you can tell what's important to you. I can tell what's important to me based on what we make time for. This year's the first year my husband suggested we do a Bible study at night, do the Bible in a year. And we are now several days behind, many days behind, because it's a long story. We're gonna have to we're gonna have to catch up. We double up to make up the nights that we miss. We'll double up. But anyway, you can find these Bible in a year apps. They're great. They tell you what to read each night. There's all different ones. There's free ones online. We just went and found one. And it's great because it's more of that time together to guess what? It's fulfilling in that number one, knowing your spouse is fulfilling that too, because you're sitting there, you're reading this scripture together, you're laughing together about different things you hadn't thought of before, you're reading it in different ways, you have questions that come up that might come up for your pastor. You have things that you're like, you just haven't thought of it in this way. I know the believers, you'll understand this when scripture hits in a different way. Maybe it never hit like that before. You didn't understand it in that way before. And so we just have like all of these fun moments reading the Bible together. And yeah, I don't care how square it sounds. It's actually like the coolest, most fun thing we could do. One of the most cool and interesting things we could do together. We also talk about books and history together and art and all kinds of things. And why shouldn't the Bible be one of those things? And if you are a husband, I mentioned this to there was one husband who asked me about, in particular, who I'm thinking of, who asked me about, oh gosh, it's so sad, but a wife who's like lost down these in the Candace Owens cult stuff. And it's like, are you not shepherding your wife? I know that's a hard question to ask, but if you have not been shepherding your wife, if you have not been leading Bible study, if you have not been leading conversations about God and thinking about God and prayer, and if you have not been that shepherd in the home, no wonder your wife became one of these women, the gullible women in 2 Timothy who follow any kind of imposter, who follow, what's the verse say? Those who creep into homes. Those who creep into homes like a podcaster. You're kind of leaving your flock, your sheep out there unprotected if you're not giving them that spiritual guidance. So that was number 2, feed. Okay. Number 3, lead. A shepherd leads the flock. A faithful pastor leads his sheep. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. A good shepherd shows the sheep where to go and what to do. The most significant way pastors lead the flock is by being examples to the flock. A faithful father leads his wife and children. The essence of leading is influencing. A faithful father leads his wife and children primarily by being an example of godliness. By your example, you should show your wife and children where to go and what to do. This is exactly what I was just talking about. If you are not influencing your wife and children, somebody else will. If you are not leading them, somebody else will. And this also answers the question people always, especially non-believers, they get stuck at this whole idea of like of the husband naturally being the leader or the head of the home. They get stuck on it for some reason, and they're like, but what if the husband is abusive? Well, clearly then he is not following God's law. He's not following God's instructions for him. He's not doing any of it right. A faithful father leads his wife and children by example. He leads them in the ways of the Lord. He loves his wife as himself. He adores her. He would sacrifice himself for her. What did it say earlier that we read? He's not violent. He's gentle. He's not prone to drunkenness. So if you're talking about a father or a husband who's abusive, who doesn't follow any of God's commandments for him, for what he's supposed to do, anything God tells him to do, well, that's a broken example. Of course the wife should not be submitting to an abusive husband. Of course not. That doesn't make any sense. Both parts have to work right. Like this is how this works together. Both parts have to be functioning. And when both are broken, like in the case of Jerry O'Connell, where we looked at, it's like they're both broken. Neither is following the role that God gave them. He's abdicated his responsibility in his leadership role, and she has refused to let him lead. Eclectic Company says, "Hi peeps, this is a sad episode. Live from Stockholm." Yeah, I'm sorry, it is. But it's not completely sad, because these are the 4 ways in which a father and a husband should be leading. The good news is, hey, here's the antidote. Hey, here's the answer. Here's how to fix what's wrong in your marriage or what's wrong in your home, and it's free. Jesus is free. You don't have to buy some 12-step plan. You don't have to pay some influencer. I mean, you can do those things. You can go out and find a class or any of those things, but this is free. Okay, number 4. A shepherd should protect. A faithful pastor protects his sheep. In the story of David and Goliath in 1 Samuel 17, David argues with King Saul after Saul says that David is too young to fight Goliath. David said to Saul, "Your servant used to keep sheep for his father, and when there came a lion or a bear and took a lamb from the flock, I went after him and I struck him and delivered it out of his mouth. And if he arose against me, I caught him by his beard and struck him and killed him. Your servant has struck down both lions and bears, and this uncircumcised Philistine shall be like one of them, for he has defied the armies of the living God." And David said, "The Lord who delivered me from the paw of the lion and from the paw of the bear will deliver me from the hand of this Philistine." Sometimes a shepherd must kill a lion or a bear. That's why Paul instructs Titus that an elder, quote, "must hold firm to the trustworthy word for a specific purpose, so that he may be able to give instruction in sound doctrine and also to rebuke those who contradict it." A church's pastor must be able to take out lions and bears that are seeking to eat the sheep. A faithful father also protects his wife and children. Men protect others. That's part of what it means to be a man. Number 1, protect your wife and children from physical harm. This includes taking security measures for their safety in and out of the home, such as protecting them from sexual predators. This is a baseline that many non-Christian fathers meet. Number 2, protect your marriage from spiritual harm. Wait, let me just go back to number 1 for a second. Protecting your wife and children. In this day and age, there's a lot you have to protect your children from. There's a lot. If you are one of the lucky ones who has like a good quality local public school near you, there's very few, but there are some. In small towns, you can still find that sometimes. That's great. But if you live in an area where where your school, like a lot of public schools, has been infiltrated with woke ideology, that is not a safe place for your kids. And so there are all different things you have to protect your kids from this day and age, and some of that includes, um, the public schools, depending on where you're at, indoctrination. Some of that includes devices, the internet. A lot of leftist parents, as we've talked about in a couple of episodes ago, they just give their kids, like, free reign on the internet to go into any dark, shadowy corner of the internet with groomers and pornography and pedo, and they're just like, "Go at it, kids, figure it out." That is terrible parenting. Number 2, protect your marriage from spiritual harm. Our adversary, the devil, has many schemes to harm marriages, and one of his most successful strategies is to inflame a man's sinful sexual desires. A faithful husband is not only aware of this dangerous threat to his marriage, he proactively fights sexual sin. The place to win this war is not on the battlefield of physical adultery. It's way before that, on the battlefield of mental adultery, looking at a woman for the purpose of lusting. And in our culture today, winning this battle means saying no to pornography. It's not just pornography. It's also all of the stuff that and this applies to men and women, because the numbers of women using pornography, unfortunately, is also escalating. And the numbers of young people and children and the age at which children start using pornography, it's crazy the amount of evil that we are surrounded by in this modern age. Those of you who are Gen X and older, it was very different. It people had to go to adult, film stores. They had to go to adult video stores. They had to order magazines or buy a magazine, but nowadays, like, children can get pornography on this little device right here in a couple of clicks or less. Um, and not just porn, accessible 24/7 on that device, but hardcore porn, like, it's because it's so accessible, because so many people have become addicted to it, it takes harder forms of the drug for people to get off, and so there are harder and harder forms of the drug out there, more depraved, more accessible, and you can see the rotten fruits of this all over. You know where you should go if you don't believe me? Go to Reddit and look at the relationship forums, look at the life after pornography forums. These are not even believers. These are non-believers, secular people, most of them leftists, who are their lives are devastated by pornography. Younger and younger and younger people. There are women in those forums talking about how their husband in his early 20s has erectile dysfunction and can't have sex with them, can't doesn't respond to a human woman anymore, like, needs the digital porn, or has gotten, groomed into such a very niche, specific, and dark kind of pornography that, can't have a normal, functional sexual relationship with his wife. There are tons of these posts. That's the dark fruits of pornography, the rotten fruits of pornography. I've also had people write to me about this. They know that I quit drinking, and I've had people write to me about different kinds of addictions and I've had men write about, like, how do I get rid of it's some of the advice is similar. Some of it's really different, but this is a problem a lot of people have. And people in the church too, they're not immune from it. Look at the rates of people who, at least on surveys, who say they attend church every Sunday, who struggle with porn addiction. It's a big struggle. Okay, number 3, protecting your children from spiritual harm, both from the outside and from the inside. First, protect your children from wolves, harm from outside. My wife and I frequently pray something like this, quote, "Father, please protect our daughters from false teachers and false teaching. Make them love what is true and good and beautiful." By the way, that's a great prayer. If you're new to prayer, I have found you just say exactly and specifically what you need help with and what you want. And, you know, a lot of times, and be prepared, by the way, sometimes when God answers your prayer, it might be painful. Like if you pray for patience, like help me become more patient, help me become a more patient spouse, help me become a more patient wife or a more patient husband. If you pray that, it might be painful because God's going to give you some examples, some opportunities to practice. To practice some real opportunities to practice being patient. And you're gonna get frustrated at first and be like, what is this? And then you realize, oh, this is God answering my prayer. He's helping me become more patient. It's not like he just like magically like touches you like you're more patient now. No, you have to learn it. So he's gonna give you those opportunities to learn it, right? Okay, but that's a great prayer. Okay, consequently, my wife and I have chosen not to send our children to government schools, especially now that public schools in America are indoctrinating children in woke ideologies. That's what I was talking about before, such as LGBT plus and critical race theory. Government schools in a pluralistic society at best attempt to teach cold, hard facts apart from God's existence, let alone acknowledging God's supremacy. Number two, we don't give our children phones or unrestricted access to the internet and social media. Also, what I was talking about. And we are careful what entertainment our children watch and listen to. We are careful what Bible teaching our children receive, and we point out what is false when we encounter it along the way, and we warn against it. Second, protect your children from going their own way, harm from inside. Quote, all we like sheep have gone astray. We have turned everyone to his own way. Sheep need fences because sheep go astray, and we need fences because we go astray. We need boundaries because we are prone to wander. Each one of us is depraved and thus wired to, quote, go his own way. Fathers, your children are prone to go their own way, and that's the wrong way. That means that fathers must discipline their children. Number 4, protect your wife and children with strength and gentleness. Be tough and tender. Protecting emphasizes strength and toughness, but wise fathers are also gentle and tender. Gentleness is the virtue of humbly and wisely showing tender kindness to someone. Fathers, we should honor the Lord and serve our children by responding gently when they are hurting, sick, scared, confused, squabbling, obnoxious, inconvenient, or irritating. We must be gentlemen by God's grace. Okay, so I thought that was a great, just like kind of a summary of what the Bible talks about. What does it mean for a husband and a father to manage his home well, to shepherd his home well? And it means to know your wife and kids, to feed your wife and kids, both physically and spiritually, to lead your wife and kids, and to protect your wife and kids. It's those all 4 of those things. That's what it means. That is part of how God designs a man. That's part of it's written on our hearts. We believe as Christians this natural law is written on our hearts. I've got a section here that I wanted to read. This is from Ephesians 5. Now, as I mentioned, a lot of leftists or non-believers, they tend to get hung up on the part of Ephesians 5 about wives submitting to the husbands, but they don't read the whole section in context. It's very beautiful. I wanted to read the whole thing just in case you happen to be watching this and you don't know the whole thing, that whole section anyway. Ephesians 5 gives us instruction on like what a marriage should look like, what should the home life look like. And it says, Ephesians 5, this is starting in verse 21. Submit to one another. Submit to one another. A lot of leftists don't know that part. Submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. Wives, submit yourselves to your own husbands as you do to the Lord. For the husband is the head of the wife, as Christ is the head of the church, his body, of which he is the Savior. Now, as the church submits to Christ, so also wives should submit to their husbands in everything. There's only one head on a body, essentially. There's only one head. There's only one leader. When I was out wandering in the woke feminist wilderness for 20 years, And I was very anti-Christian and very bigoted towards Christians, and I thought I knew everything, as a lot of young leftists do, and I knew nothing. And one of the lies I bought into, so many lies, but one of the lies I bought into was that in a marriage that you can both be like equally leading, like that you can just both be, I don't know, like leading side by side, that there doesn't have to be a leader. And if you've ever been in a marriage, or if you've ever been in even a business partnership, you will learn that this is not true. There's going to be a leader. There's going to be someone at the end of the day, if you guys can't agree on something, who takes that role. If you are both trying to lead, many times you're going to be like two unequally yoked oxen going off in different directions and pulling against each other and not getting anywhere because you're pulling against each other. This is not really a prescription. This is just a description of the way things are. This is just a description. There's going to be one head. And God designed the man to be the head of the household in the way that Christ is the head of the church, to be that leader, to be the one that you look to. There are pros and cons that come with being the leader. There are good things and bad things that come with being the leader, and there are good things and bad things that come with being the quote unquote weaker vessel. Now, I know some of you immediately, I can already hear the comments of people being like, hey, in my case, I do this, or I don't fit in this way. Yes, I know there are always outliers. There are always outliers to anything. I'm talking about the norm. I'm talking about God's natural law. I'm not talking about the examples that fall outside of it. If you understand what a bell curve is, I'm not talking about the end parts of the bell curve. Okay. I wanted to finish this. Wait a minute. This verse. Hold on. Okay. So I'll continue. This is Ephesians 5. I'll continue with verse 25. Now here's the instruction for husbands. Husbands, love your wives just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. Like sacrificial love. That's what God is commanding husbands to do. Sacrificial love. Just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her to make her holy, cleansing her by the washing with water through the word, and to present her to himself as a radiant church without stain or wrinkle or any other blemish, but holy and blameless. In this same way, husbands ought to love their wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. After all, no one ever hated their own body, but they feed and care for their body, just as Christ does the church. For we are members of his body. For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. And then it continues, this is a profound mystery, but I am talking about Christ and the church. However, each one of you also must love his wife as he loves himself, and the wife must respect her husband. It's right there in those verses, isn't it? It's sort of like emphasizing how much men crave respect and women crave that love, that sacrificial love. I'm going to get to the super chats, guys. I see them. Thank you so much. I just wanted to wrap this up with a little bit of advice. So as I mentioned, I was reading advice on what do you do? This is all well and good if you have now, like if you're a person like me who came to learn the truth about things late in life, the truth of God, who came to know God late in life, and let's say you came to know God late and you have not been leading or shepherding your family. Let's say that you are in a crisis situation. So number one, most important thing is to figure out that connection with your spouse, with your wife that I mentioned earlier. Get to know your spouse. Set aside time to get to know and to connect with your spouse and to answer those deep questions, those meaningful questions. Set aside that time where you put it all on the table and say, I know we're in this crisis situation. I know we don't agree on much. I know maybe who knows how bad it is with you guys right now. Like maybe you hate each other's guts, but I'm all in. Are you all in? and rededicate yourselves to each other, and then spend that time necessary, that face-to-face time, to get to know each other. That's number 1. Number 2, this came from, some of this is my advice and some of this is a list that I found, advice from men for men. Um, have a corner man. Don't walk this alone. It says find accountability. So you got to have other men that you talk to and that you lean on and that you get advice from. You got to have men that you get advice from, because I mean, I haven't walked in your shoes clearly, or you're going to find men who have been in this situation, or been in something more similar, much more similar than anything I can imagine. So you got to have those men in your corner. You got to have good male friends, like Christian friends, who you can talk to about anything and who you can be vulnerable with. If you are a new believer, be very careful who you talk to about your problems. You don't want to run down your spouse. You don't want to talk to someone who is untrustworthy, who then goes and takes the truth that you told them, the vulnerable truth that you told them, and uses it to spin mischief and darkness into gossip and slander. You don't want to do that. So you need to be very careful about the people that you talk to, but you do need to open up and talk to those people. You could even start with your pastor. You could start with the elders at your church. If you're not going to a church, that's another big one right away. You've got to get into a church. I know the world tells us, it's just as easy to, like, you can just read the Bible on your own. And yes, you can do that, but it's so much harder. Why would you do it the hard way? Why would you do it to make things harder for yourself? It is such a blessing to find a God-centered church with a church family who has your back and who's there for you and gives you support, not just on advice with things about your marriage and your family, but also, I mean, all kinds of support. Like our church, we do meal trains when people are sick. We will lay hands on you and pray for you if you're going through something and you bring it to the pastor's attention and you need the whole church to pray for you. We do men's retreats. We do women's classes. We read books together. Like, there's so many different ways that we support each other. Just being there, being neighbors, being community, being like a family, like an extended family for one another. That's what you're missing out on. And so if you're not going to church, if you're not getting nourished in the word from a shepherd, you as a man, you're the shepherd of your home, but you need a shepherd. If you don't have someone who's leading you, someone that you look to, like an overseer, like the qualifications mentioned in 1 Timothy, if you don't have an elder or deacon or pastor or someone who's older and wiser than you, who you look to, a man who's older and wiser than you, like, you're missing out. And you can find, it may not be the first church you visit or the second or the third, but you can find one if you pray on it. Let's say you're one of these people who's like, look, no, Keri, I've looked everywhere and all the churches here suck. Trust me. I know there's a lot of leftist fake churches. It's not good to go. No, they're going to be, if they're leading you down the wrong path, that's not what I'm talking about. So I'm not saying go to some crazy woke church of Satan. What I am saying is, if you pray for it, God, the Bible says, knock and he will answer. So make that your number one prayer. God, open doors that are meant to be open for me. Close the doors that are meant to be closed. Lead me to a God-fearing church. I need a God-fearing church. Please, if it's your will, lead me to that God-fearing church. And then you have to make an effort to find one. You have to go out and visit different churches. So surround yourself with a church community who cares about you and is going to help you and support you with whatever you're struggling with. And maybe you're at a place where you're like in a Jerry O'Connell situation where, I don't know, like there's no way your wife will come with you to church. Go without her at first. Take a stand. Be a man. Tell her, this is what I'm doing. It is my wish that you come with me, but I'm not going to force you, right? Go without her and get strong first before you try and fix everything. Other advice that I saw is mentor and be mentored, which I think is like maybe for when you're a little bit further along, but this is a concept from AA actually. Part of the reason in AA you have sponsors or their sponsors is because there's this idea that if you're struggling, it helps you to help others who are struggling. And it it sounds counterintuitive the first time you hear this, but it really works. When you're struggling and you help other people who are struggling, like suddenly you're not struggling as much. It makes you useful. It gives you meaning to help someone else. It gives you self-confidence to be of help to someone else. And to get outside of your own problems and your own struggle and to help someone else who's struggling. So mentor and be mentored. That's one of the pieces of advice. Be in the Word, which I mentioned before. You have to be in the Word. You have to be reading the Bible. You have to be praying. If you're not doing those things, start doing those things. See what happens. See what comes from that. Okay. I'm going to read a couple of these. I want to thank a couple people. If you guys have questions for me, if there's something that you think I should have touched on that I'm leaving out, it's such a big topic, so let me know. But thank you for being here. Brandy Wallen, thank you for the super chat. For $10 says Chuck Norris. By the way, yes, I saw the news right before I started that Chuck Norris died, and it's very sad. Rest in peace, Chuck Norris. There've just been so many. We've just lost so many people recently. So he says Chuck Norris is the only man to ever tell a woman to calm down and live to tell the tale. R.I.P. Rest in peace. Funny, but not true. No. No, you should be. That's another thing. You should be able to tell your wife to calm down if she needs to calm down. That's the other, you should be able to do that. John Wayne, 1985 for $10. Thank you. John Wayne says, I have great memories watching Sliders with my father and brother back in the 90s. Oh, that's something Jerry O'Connell was in. And seeing how Jerry turned out is quite disappointing, to say the least. Just sad and pathetic now. It's so sad. Somebody mentioned that because he was overweight as a kid, that maybe he has like sort of this inadequate, maybe he just has never overcome this feeling that he's not good enough or something, and that the fact that this crazy abusive woman who's so hot physically wanted him was too, like, he couldn't say no to that. If that's the case, that's really sad. There's no amount of lipstick on a pig that makes it not a pig. Eric Rader for 10 New Zealand dollars. I think that's New Zealand. Thank you so much for the super chat. Says, Keri, I just want your opinion. It seems that narcissists really hate autistic people. At a meeting, I learned that autistic people are not only blunt, they'll tell for what their personalities really are. My opinion, well, two things. Number one, sometimes actually autistic people are prime targets for narcissists, especially if it's like a grifter kind of narcissist who wants to make money off of a cash cow. They will target autistic people sometimes, like cult leaders, those kind of things will target autistic people, because autistic people have a harder time discerning lies when someone's being deceptive. Not all, but on average, they have a harder time telling when something is a fib, like when somebody is trying to lie to them or manipulate them. And so liars, narcissists, will sometimes target them for exploitation. I know that happens. What you're describing is kind of the opposite. It's autistic people just saying what they think. So you're kind of talking about, like, if they come to realize you are a liar, they will just say it. They will just say so. And that's true as well. I have seen that. They'll just say what the truth is. And that probably does terrify or make narcissists very angry. They don't like anybody to see what they are and to say what they are, honestly. So I hope that I hope that answered your question. I hope you're not dealing with that. My best advice for a narcissist is to not engage with them at all if you can help it. I know it can't always be helped. Also, Eric Rader for 10 New Zealand dollars says, Keri, I just want to add, in my area where autistic people are worried about a roading project, narcissists hated it when they were called out for protecting their home over the environment as well. Worried about eroding, worried about narcissists hated when they were called out for protecting their home over the environment as well. Oh, well, any kind of challenge, yes, any kind of direct challenge to what they're saying, or anyone who calls them a liar or who calls out their hypocrisy, like it's what happens is that it's called narcissistic injury. It's when their ego is injured, and they can become very malicious when that happens, and vengeful, and try to deal out some kind of punishment and to extract some kind of vengeance when they feel that their ego has been injured. I hope that you're not dealing with this, and I'm sorry if you are. Hey, SD0, what's up? Good to see you. Davina was talking a little bit about cluster B and says it gets dangerous when because the abuser usually gaslights and tells everyone the victim is the abuser. Oh, absolutely. This always happens. They always do, Darvo. CB says, I understood a narcissist as someone who is obsessed with themselves. Do you have a better definition? Well, it depends on how you're using the term. Narcissist with the small n, kind of used colloquially. Yes, people just use that word casually and colloquially to mean people who are obsessed with themselves. But it's actually, I guess if a capital N, narcissistic personality disorder is one of the 4 types of cluster B personality disorder. And the way I describe this for people, if you're new to it, is it's just psychology's way of trying to understand and classify evil behaviors better, evil personality types. And in fact, if you go back in the literature, we used to call personality disorders, we used to call them character disorders, like disorders of a person's character, of their moral character. We understood them to be that. There's 4 types of what psychology calls cluster B personality disorders. There's 4 types. One of those types is narcissistic personality disorder. And there are several characteristics of it. You have to check off quite a few of them to be diagnosed as actually having the quote unquote disorder. But they do have a very high, an abnormally high degree of narcissism. They have a very low degree of empathy. They don't really they don't really view people as their own people. They view people as objects to be used. They don't really have any feelings for other people or what other people are going through. They don't understand it. They have a high degree of Machiavellianism. Like they'll kind of the belief that they think the ends justify the means. Like they will do any type of wicked behavior, any type of deception or manipulation to get what they want. Yeah. If you were interested in cluster B personality disorders, one of the best shows I can recommend if you like podcasts is my friend Josh Slocum's show. It's called Disaffected, and he does a show all about cluster B. Lucky Dice 78 for $10. Thank you for the super chat. Says, it's my sincerest prayer that more people will become a part of your community. You're such a force for the Lord. God bless you and your husband. That is so kind. Thank you. Thank you for the prayers. Thank you very much, Lucky Dice, and thank you for supporting the channel. Spelled Locum. It's spelled Slocum, Slocum. His show is called Disaffected. And I did an interview with him recently, or I had him on. If you want to see, a week or 2 ago, just a few episodes ago, we did an episode about bad moms. You can see us together. And Also, if you go to his channel, I did an interview. I've been on his channel a few times, and you can check those episodes out if you're interested. But he does a great podcast on viewing and understanding bad ideology through the lens of better understanding cluster B personality disorder. Like, he kind of takes those two subjects together and puts them together. Yeah. Wolf says, get ready for a sharp tongue and no apologies. Yeah. That's a good warning for Josh. I will warn you. He's not a believer yet. He is, as some of you know, if you watch his show. I would characterize it as God. He is wrestling with God currently, which is a great thing. And he's very interested in the Bible and scripture. And we see a lot. He says he likes to say that he is currently carpooling with the Christians. He's carpooling with us. But yeah, get ready for a sharp tongue and some foul language, FYI. There you go. Okay. I hope you had a good time today, even though it was a weighty subject, like being a better husband and being a better father and being a good shepherd of your home and female abuse, all these weighty topics. But I hope you got something out of it. If you liked the video, please hit like or leave a comment. Leaving a comment helps the algorithm. And I will see you on Monday. I'm doing a live episode I'm doing an interview with Jay Witt. Some of you are probably from the Jay Witt podcast. I'm so excited. And if you're not familiar with him, you're going to love this guy. And so that's going to be Monday live at 2:00 Central. I will see you guys then. Oh, give it up for Therese and Rob, two of our mods in the chat. Thank you, guys. Shepherd your flock to the like button, says Robert Lowry. And Therese, necessary subject, Keri. Thanks. Everyone have a great weekend. I'll see you guys on Monday. Take care. Bye-bye.